Cool, so I'm here with Stephen Masters, who's the lead game designer on Assassin's Creed 3. Obviously, you've finished the game now. It feels like a kind of mix between AC2's kind of epic storyline and Brotherhood's sort of more systemic kind of sandbox. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I reckon that is fair to say. We've done a lot with the systems, making sure that there's a lot of interplay between the systems, that there's a lot more freedom for the AI to react to other AI units as well as yourself. That things like the NPCs will get into fights with animals, so there's a lot of interplay between the different systems. And yeah, absolutely, in terms of the story, it's the biggest and most epic story we've put together yet.
Is there pressure between the writing team and the designers about what can't make it into the final product?
All the time, absolutely. We're continuously fighting. And it's a really good-natured fight. Corey's an awesome dude. He's our lead writer, and he's really passionate about the story. But we have this rule that basically says if you can't prove or disprove something really quickly on Wikipedia by just doing some fact checking, it's got to be that way or not that way, right? So when we're designing our gameplays, we'll always aim for the most playable experience we can. And the most fun experience, and we'll find the gray zones in history where it's not exactly clear what happened, so we can insert our story into this. So for example, if you find out that this guy died on a battlefield, but the circumstances are a little bit unclear, say we don't know if he was shot or if he was stabbed, or hey, there's a hint in one of the histories that it might have been friendly fire that took him out. This is a gold mine for us. This is something where the writers say, hey, we've got an opportunity. We don't know what happened to this dude. We can kill him, right? So that's where we can insert Connor's story into it. And that's where we as designers can take a little bit more liberty to say, okay, right, he's going to be over here in this position, and it's going to be Connor stabbing him.
In terms of the plot, I mean, this is a real sort of epic storyline. Was it risky? Because it starts strongly, but it's a very kind of it's got a very measured pace to it.
Yeah, we wanted to spend a lot of time building Connor's character, explaining where he came from, some of the story behind him, right? And we also wanted to make sure that you'd have a really clear picture of what was happening and who you were after. So we spend a lot of time setting things up, and because it's a new hero, new era, it sort of requires a lot of that setup. So yeah, we had to take a slightly slower approach to it, be a bit more measured, a bit more paced out, but we still have some pretty epic events right at the very beginning, and we have a lot of variety, a lot of different things that you'll encounter really quickly in the game. So I'm really happy with the sort of amount of different things that you see early on.
And it builds to a pretty electrifying climax. I feel like you've kind of made it very difficult for the guys who make the next Assassin's Creed game, without any spoilers.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting challenge.
It's great to see a game actually tie up a lot of loose ends, because it's so easy to sort of let them run on sort of Lost style. But you do have things for people to do after the game's finished. I mean, there's this pivot system, which, can you explain a little bit about what that is?
Sure. There's this concept of basically needing to find, you're kind of tracking down weaknesses in the Animus code, and where a vulnerability is being exploited inside of the code of the Animus, and people are trying to find the assassins via this exploit. So you're using a sort of a distributed system to track down these exploits and close them off. So because it's distributed, you're going to be working with other assassin cells, planting and finding these pivots, and using those pivots to find other pivots as well. So it's a networked thing where you're playing a game of hide and seek, essentially, where I plant something into the environment. It's hidden there for somebody else to find. And then I use the ones that I'm planting down as sort of beacons to identify where the other ones are. So it's just something that we wanted to give to people as there's kind of some interesting little bits of story hooked into it, and it's going to give you some clues about what we're doing in the future.
And one of the other things you'll be able to do after you finish is pick up the DLC. Now, the first DLC is the first time you guys have dabbled with sort of alternate history, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We're doing The Madness of King George. So for us, it's been always very difficult. Having key plot points in DLC means that not all of your audience gets to see it. A bunch of people end up having to just YouTube it. And for us, that's not really an ideal way to see the game. So for us, it was kind of a chance to do something fun with the license and do something out of the ordinary with our gameplay. So we're basically just having a little bit more fun developing it, and we think people are going to enjoy the sort of like more fantastical side of what we're creating. Yep.
Well, what's kind of interesting about that is that obviously none of the characters in this game are either good or bad. There's nuances to their kind of character and stuff, which makes, even though it's obviously an alternate history, it kind of feels more plausible when you follow the story through.
Yeah, it's something I really like about our story is that we don't deal with absolutes and good and evil, because the real world is really not like that. And the people that you're going to be fighting against and assassinating, they believe in their cause. They have rational reasons, and they have a belief in what they're doing. And I find that really compelling because it's much more true as a conflict than the guy who's just pure evil and you have to go kill him, right? And it gives you much more to think about when you play the game as well.
I think that's something that's been in the series since the very beginning. Like the idea of these people saying their piece once you've killed them, and often you feel quite sorry for them right at the end.
Yeah, that's it. And you come to question your own motives and wonder, who is actually correct in this case. So I find it really compelling, and it makes for a much richer story.
And obviously Desmond gets to stretch his legs a little bit more this time. It was always inevitably going to be the case. Is that something that was a kind of surprise to the team, how Desmond's story ended? Did anyone other than Corey know?
We talk about it a lot amongst the team, and with the directors, we knew where we wanted to go. But yeah, it was important for us that Desmond was back with a bigger role than he's ever had. And to really utilize the skills and techniques that he's picked up in the previous games, for us was important. That was something that we wanted to do. So it's always a challenge with Desmond, doing gameplay with no HUD and things like this. But for us, it was a really fun challenge, and I can't wait to see the reaction from people of what they get out of him.
It's interesting that this is a big overhaul. We've had Brotherhood and Revelations, which felt like kind of spin-offs, and then you've got this big overhaul, but it's also the closing it out of a trilogy. Does that mean next time an Assassin's Creed game comes along, it needs to be another complete change, do you think?
Well, I can't really talk about any plans that we have. We know where we're going.